Joining me today, normally in Miami, but right now in Nicaragua, my guest is Francisco Lacayo. Francisco, welcome to May I Have Your Attention?
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I've heard great things about the podcast. I've listened to some episodes myself, so I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. I want to give our audience a very brief background on Francisco. He is the VP of Partnerships at White Shark Media, a leading digital marketing agency with more than 10 years of experience managing pay-per-click campaigns with Google, Microsoft, Facebook ads, and more. Francisco has worked in the digital marketing industry for 13 years, leading different projects involving customer experience, product development, and product innovation. And I just want to call out for listeners, one thing I thought that was really compelling about Francisco's background, he's been at White Shark Media for over 6 years now, but he's in those 6 years, he's really touched on everything. He started as a PPC strategist, he did digital marketing management, he did director of product, he did VP of client experience, and now he's overseeing partnerships. So I think it's awesome to connect with someone like Francisco because he has such a broad lens on a very exciting industry. So maybe to start things off, Francisco, can you give a little bit more information about White Shark, what you're doing there?
Yeah, sure. And thank you for the introduction. It has been quite a journey. I'm actually turning 6 here at White Shark in about 1 month or two. So it's been quite a journey. But we're a digital marketing agency. We've been around for 11 years. We actually just turned 11 ourselves. So we've been around for a while. We started as a digital marketing agency for, the average SMB out there in the US. We were working with a lot of small businesses when we started. And then we grew to the point where we were being reached out by other agencies to work on their PPC program and help them with white label fulfillment. So we did a strategical shift into that. And now we still work with direct advertisers to manage their PPC campaigns. So their Google ads, Microsoft ads, Facebook ads. But we have a pretty hefty partner program, which is where we help other agencies fulfill their PPC. As we all know in the digital marketing world, PPC is one of the strongest components, basically any digital marketing strategy. But it's not that easy to manage campaigns efficiently, get the ROI for clients, technical aspect, the communication. It's a changing world. Google and Microsoft change everything all the time. So it's hard to keep track of everything. And that's why we decided to specialize on that particular venue, because we see a lot of agencies struggle with PPC management, whether it is because they don't have the technical expertise, or they have issues hiring people that does, or they have to deal with attrition. They don't know how to communicate it with the client. So that's how our partner program was born. And it's been pretty good for us in the past 3 years. We're working with partners, all over North America, but we also have partners in Europe. We have partners in Australia, and a good set amount of partners in Latin America as well. And we've been able to grow quite fast as well. So we're happy with the results and what we've been able to do.
So I want to do a deeper dive in a second on PPC, because I feel like, for me at least, and I think most businesses, PPC, SEO, they both scare the crap out of me, because I know that you could have like a PhD, multiple PhDs in those subjects and still have a lot to learn. So those have always been in the category of like, I'm never going to do that myself. But let me start by asking, I want to kind of ask about how you're getting attention, how you're acquiring customers for White Shark Media. And obviously PPC, I'm sure, will play a role in that. But I just want to explore other things that you do to get noticed, because I know that it's not always one strategy in a portfolio.
Yeah, no, for White Shark in particular, I mean, we've done a lot of things throughout the years. We've heavily relied on PPC, at least for the beginning of the agency, because we weren't that known and we were just starting to navigate the waters. But we've been able to grow pretty quick, and that comes with partnerships. So we have a great partnership with Google. We're a premier partner. We have a great partnership with Microsoft. We're a select partner. We won Partner of the Year with them in the past partner awards. So that's opened a lot of doors for us, and it's helped us reach bigger partners and bigger partnerships and just bigger clients altogether. And then together with that, we've invested a lot in our content generation and just adding value for customers. For instance, with the pandemic, one big learning experience for us was that we were doing a lot of marketing for ourselves, and we applied the same principles to our clients, but we understood that in times where people maybe weren't, interested in buying a product or a service, or were looking for something else, or they had uncertainty about the future, creating added value through content was key. And that's really what was going to get you to the next level and set you apart from everyone else. So we invested a lot of resources into creating a lot of content for our clients and helping our clients create content for their clients. And this was content that wasn't necessarily tied to their PPC campaign as such, but it was tied to their market, what to do, how to do things, how to navigate the pandemic. And that strategy paid off significantly for us because it got us to a lot of places that we weren't going to before. It opened a lot of doors. We started getting invited to events and things of the sort. And it basically expanded our network. So the same principle that we applied to us, we applied to our clients. And that's what we try to encourage, especially now with all the changes in the digital marketing world, is if you're going to have a marketing strategy and you're targeting a particular, set of people or potential customers, yeah, you have a product and you have this proposition that you want to give or a service, but you have to make sure that through every step of that journey, you're adding value to a potential customer, even if they're not a customer at first. And if you invest time and resources into that particular process of adding value, then your reach and your growth is just going to be exponential because that's kind of the nature of the consumer and buyer journey nowadays. And that's what we learned as well in the past couple of years.
That's great. 3 things I just want to bookmark for listeners. Like I appreciate you're talking about partnerships. I don't think anyone on the show has talked about that before. And it seems like such an incredible way to grow quickly and one that you've clearly leveraged well with Partner of the Year with Microsoft and the partnership with Google. I really like this idea of creating content that you guys are doing that. And then you're helping your clients doing that in the sense of adding value at every step of the journey. And just one more question before we go into PPC. What advice do you have? Let's say a company is 20 to 50 employees. They're just starting to grow. Any advice you'd give to them about how to think about that strategy for creating content and distributing it, knowing what content to create, but also where to distribute it?
Yes. For us, what worked, and I think this is the biggest step that you need to take is, it sounds pretty basic, but we still see a lot of companies and clients are doing is listen to your existing customers because they're going to tell you what they need. And what they need is what your prospects need. For instance, we revamped our entire CSAT structure to, we started sending surveys to our customers. We picked up the phone and talked to them more often. So your existing customers are going to tell you what the market wants. If you are going through a dip or you want to scale, call your top 10 customers and ask them, what are you looking for? What makes, why are you choosing us? What makes something different for you? And based on what they're saying, you're going to have a pretty good idea of where you should go with the prospects. This obviously comes with, having a market research team and looking through the numbers and paying attention and reading and listening and being present. But, most companies would be extremely surprised on how much relevant feedback they can get from their existing customers and how important that feedback is to get new customers and to get to the next level in terms of acquisition. And for us, it was a huge learning experience. During COVID, what we did was we had a lot of customers pausing their campaigns, so we weren't doing any work for them, but we called them up and said, what else would you need? If you're not running the campaigns, how else can we help you? What are you looking for? And they said, well, I would like to, write a blog article for my customers so they know what to do right now that we're not open and give them suggestions on how to protect themselves. Okay, perfect. We're going to do that for you. And then we're going to try to do that for our own customers as well and see if that resonates with them. And it did. And we understood the added value of that particular feedback and then rolled it out. And it was extremely successful for us. So if you're a small company or a mid-sized company trying to grow, your existing customers is probably your gold mine in terms of where to take the strategy because they're confident enough with your service to give you feedback. They're happy and they represent your prospect market. So that's really the pool that you have to get all the information that you need.
That's such a good answer. Two things I want to point out. The first is the previous guest on the show, Steve Hoffman from Founder Space. One of the things he said that I loved was customers have 10 reasons for saying no to you and 1 reason for saying yes. And so really mine your existing customers and figure out what is that 1 reason why they're saying yes, because other prospects are going to do the same. So I really appreciate the wisdom of what you're saying is like, man, all of the answers are coming from your existing community. The second thing that I love about that is, and I try to keep this top of mind at Captivate, I use a lot of different vendors. And it's so clear that for most of them, so much effort goes into acquiring me, and then they're on to the next thing. And that really sucks as a customer. And so what I'm liking about what you're saying is like when you're trying to add value to customers, not only does that inform your strategy for acquisition, but it establishes a better relationship with your existing customers, because it's not, you've paid me money, I'm going to go to the next person. It shows that you're continuing to invest in them. So I think that's a great answer on multiple fronts.
Yes, no, and you're touching upon a subject which is obviously related to PPC, but basically related to everything in regards to companies and client management, which is churn. And again, we also had a lot of learning experiences here. And then when we figured we cracked the code with churn and attrition and clients leaving, was when we understood the importance of that particular topic you're saying, which is don't just sell a client and then let them use your service, like build a partnership. And that's kind of the nature of my role, right? In our department is it's not about just bringing someone on board and then sending them to a product team so they can do the work, but it's, keeping the touch points, keeping the communication open, understanding what the next steps are, understanding where they're going as a customer. And the more you understand that, the more you can understand where you come in and where you can add value. And in a lot of cases, that also opens doors for other projects. If you have a client or you're constantly talking to your clients and they're talking about their next step being a new channel or a new approach or a new product, if that's an ongoing feedback that you're getting and an ongoing center for most of your clients, that's an opportunity for you to evolve as an agency as well and say, hey, I'm talking to my clients. They're all saying the same thing. They all want to go the same place. This is my opportunity to go with them and invest in that particular project, in that product, and continue evolving together with the market in something that will likely be successful. So communication with clients is key, not only to get the feedback, but to keep them engaged with you. And if we want to be transparent, every digital marketing agency out there has clients, where their campaigns are not performing and they're not getting the results that they want. But if the service is there and they feel that you're part of their company, if they feel that you're helping them with their marketing goals, they'll stay for years, even if the results are not there, because they see the added value of not just the account management, but also the consulting relationship that you have and how engaged and involved you are with their goals and their needs. So I would say communication and that engagement and that client management aspect of the equation is, if not the same, maybe more important than the account management itself.
That's great. Let's talk about PPC. And I have a lot of questions here. And I also want to just give you open space because you probably know what questions I should be asking. But one of the first things that comes to mind for me is for me, PPC is both appealing because it feels like of every acquisition channel, it's the one that everyone agrees works. And it's also intimidating because you have to spend, my perception is you have to spend and sometimes spend a lot of money, not just for the ads themselves, but for the management of them. And so my first question is, at what point do you think a company should start to consider investing in a PPC strategy?
I think that if you are at a level where you're considering a marketing budget, then you should probably consider some of that budget going into PPC. So if you're a freelancer and maybe you work off referrals, PPC might not be a good fit for you. But even if you're a small company, very local, you're just starting out, if you're thinking about allocating $200 to your overall marketing budget, some of that should go to PPC because PPC doesn't really have an entry barrier or level. It does vary per industry, and there are certain industries that are more restricted in terms of the cost. But most companies should consider investing in PPC as part of the digital strategy because and you just mentioned this, it's not only effective or efficient, but it really is one of the few channels where you're targeting people with a significantly higher intent than any other channel. If you do SEO, it's fairly similar, but it takes longer. But if you think about other traditional marketing channels like billboards or email marketing or even Facebook for that matter, there's a lot of outbound approaches going on. You're trying to reach someone who you think would be interested and you're hoping that they are and you're hoping to engage them and hoping they come back. But that's not the smoothest journey and it's not necessarily the most efficient. If you're talking about, core search campaigns, you're only going to show up when someone is looking for you. It's as strong in terms of intent as it gets. You're just being at the right place at the right time. So if you have $20 to invest and you can invest them, make sure you invest them in a channel that will allow you to be there when someone is asking for you. If someone's knocking the door, make sure you pay those $20 to have someone open the door and talk to that potential customer, right? So in terms of the size of the companies and the stages, I would say almost any business out there that has some sort of marketing budget should be investing somehow in digital in general, but most specifically in PPC, at least a small branded campaign or a very small core campaign, trying a couple of keywords. But definitely you want to be there in those specific moments where potential customers are looking for you, because if you don't do it, your competitors will. Most of your competitors are doing it anyway. So that's also a good indicator. If you want to know if advertising would make sense for you, look for yourself and your services online and see what shows up. And if it's not you, then you should probably invest because someone else will do the same and they won't find you. They'll find someone else. And that's an opportunity you don't want to miss.
That's a great hack at the end there. I like that thought of like just seeing how visible am I. And it makes me realize with Captivate, all of the things that we do that are relatively top of the funnel, like it's reaching out to the type of customer we want with no knowledge if they're even interested. But when you're saying that, it reminds me like, man, this is such an incredible, very bottom of the funnel approach of like they're looking for it. Like that should be where you start. The people that are looking for you rather than like the Hail Mary or trying to convince someone. So I think that's a good reminder. I want to give this conversation in particular a little bit more wide room than normal because I realize how ignorant I am about PPC. So I'll turn it over to you to a little bit more like part of where I think is like what trends are you seeing or what channels work better for PPC. But I'm guessing that you have a better insight of what our audience should know about PPC. So I'd love to give you a little bit more free rein to direct the conversation.
Yeah, sure. I mean, first of all, what everyone needs to understand is that PPC is a changing world. So what I say about PPC right now might not be what makes sense in 6 months. And this happens all the time because there's all the changes that happen across the networks. So Google comes up with a new campaign type, with a new product, with a new way of reaching customers, etc. Then there's the industry changes. There's a big debate right now about privacy and the third-party cookies and that going away and how you're going to reach customers. But more importantly, there's the change in consumer psychology and how people are going towards buying a service or a product. If you think about how we used to approach and go for a service maybe 5 or 10 years ago, you would probably just find a friend that knew someone that could provide whatever you're looking for. Maybe that would also be your referral. So, hey, that friend will validate if the service is good or not. And then you will probably give them a call, look at the yellow pages, give them a call, and then hire them. Right now, if you want to hire a service, you're going to have 20, 30, 40 touch points before you actually get to that one service that you want to get to. You're going to go and do research on several competitors. You're going to wait and then come back a week after and try to do some more research. You're going to find other things that you didn't know. You're going to learn about the service that you're going to hire. You're going to learn about the product. It's such a complex journey and it changes so much through time that everyone needs to understand that PPC is a changing beast. So that's the first thing that everyone needs to understand. Another key component here is that because the journeys now are so much more complex, most PPC products now offer different products or different channels for each one of those journeys. So you want to do brand awareness, there's something for that. You can do YouTube ads or you can do a display campaign so people learn about your brand. Do you want to do something more towards, generating sales? You can do shopping campaigns, or you can do a more, core focused search campaign. Do you want to have a more specific B2B approach? You can use LinkedIn audiences through Microsoft because that works with LinkedIn profiles and it works with LinkedIn information. So there is not a one size fits all solution out there with PPC. Because the journey is complex, you have all these tools that are available to try to capture every moment of the journey. And when someone doesn't, you don't have experience with PPC or you haven't worked with campaigns before, that can be a hard concept to grasp because it gets you to the point where you say, okay, now I have to understand my full journey. So what do I do with search? Like, where do I put it? How does it go? And then what that's done for us, especially in this industry, it's forcing us to understand our clients better. It's not just about, okay, your potential customers using this keyword to look for you. Is what is your potential customer doing after they go to your website? Are they going to your competitors? What's changing their mind? Why are they leaving? Are they price sensitive? Is that really a thing? Or are they looking for more added value somewhere else? And then now we're being forced to have these conversations that we weren't having 4 or 5 years ago. And that's changing the way we tell our story as brands. So if you want to focus on PPC and you want to give it a shot, you have to understand your client base. You have to understand your prospects, but you have to understand your brand and your journey and the storytelling that you're going to roll out for that particular prospect base. So PPC works. PPC is a tool. It's very technical. It's about setting up things in particular channels so that people can find you. But the human component behind that is what's going to make the difference. If you're telling the right story, if you're setting the tool to show at the right place at the right time, if you're tracking things correctly, that's another element about PPC that, different from other traditional marketing means. You can measure most of what's happening in the platform. You can track the ROI, you can track the cost per conversion, and you can actually understand if it makes financial sense for you. If I pay for a billboard, I think people are looking at the billboard, and I'm hoping that someone's coming to my store because they're seeing the billboard. With PPC, you know how many people have seen it, if they're relevant, how much you're paying for one of those to go visit your store or give you a call. You know all those numbers, so you know if your investment makes sense or not, and if it's relevant. So I think those three things are one of the some of the key elements that you need to take into account before jumping the water. And once you decide to jump into the water and launch PPC campaigns, talk to a specialist, talk to an expert. I'm not necessarily here telling you to hire an agency if it doesn't make sense, especially if you're starting local, but talk to someone that knows about the product and that can give you some advice on how to navigate the technical part, and then try to learn more about your business and how to tell the story better to your potential customers. And then you'll probably be successful with the product.
I think that's great. And one thing that stood out to me when you were talking about that, when you talked about the human element and how important that is, and the sense of storytelling and the arc that customers go on, I thought that was really interesting because I always think of PPC as straight up numbers and data, which you make a compelling case that is an advantage of it. But I really appreciate how you're coupling that with this sense of art and understanding a product and a customer and the journey they go on and where they're at. So you can structure not just one campaign, one touch point, but to your earlier point, like 20 to 40 touch points to become a customer. You have to have some sort of overarching strategy. And then I also appreciate how you are articulating that value, like compared to a billboard and these other things. Like PPC is great because you do have that insight of what's working, where it's working, who it's working with. And I feel like that's what all of us as business owners want to know. We want that information, but it's just not possible with most channels.
Yes, no. And I think that's what's fascinating about the PPC industry as well, is that it goes beyond the technical part, but it really helps you see things that you're not seeing with other channels, not just the numbers and not just what works and what doesn't, but also how people behave. And it can get tricky at times. And that's why it's not easy, right? I mean, if you're thinking of, let's say you have a YouTube campaign and you're getting a lot of views, but the way you're tracking it, you don't see those views turning into calls or turning into sales. And you would think after 2 or 3 months, like, okay, I'm getting exposure, but nothing's happening. But if you take more time to understand the journey of your customers, then you'll realize that maybe someone saw an ad through YouTube, and then a week later they went to your website, not through a PPC ad, just directly, and then they hire your services. And tracking wise, that might not show up for YouTube, but if you understand the journey, you know that YouTube was a key element in bringing that customer there. And that's extremely fascinating because then you get to understand how people behave, right? And I think that's the whole thing about digital marketing. You have the money, you have the revenue, you have the leads, you have the numbers, but in reality, it's all about behavior and people. I'm an economist. I specialize in behavioral economics, and that's why this clicks for me so much, because it's the one channel where you get to see how humans behave. And what this means is that whoever drives that strategy needs to think human first, and then the business side, and then the numbers, and then the technical aspect. And for me, that's extremely fascinating.
I'm so glad you mentioned the behavioral economics. I almost put that in your bio and it was getting too long, so I left it out. But I think that's such a unique lens through which you view all of this. I know that we're at time, so I just want to end with how can people find you? How can they contact you if they're interested in learning more?
Yes. No, first of all, thank you for the time, but they can go to our website, whitesharkmedia.com. We put a lot of great content out there and it's all free. So if you want to learn more about the industry, digital marketing, PPC, trends, all the communication we put out there, feel free to go there and you can find, we have a great YouTube channel as well. We do a lot of series. We do webinars. We call them shark clips, which are very product specific videos. So you can find us on the website or our YouTube channel. And if you want to reach out, feel free to reach out to any of us and we'll be glad to help you out.
Awesome. Well, Francisco, thank you so much for your time and expertise today.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for having me.